Hi, we're Oxygen Conservation, and this is the Shoot Room Sessions. Morning, Andrew.
Morning, Rich.
Welcome to the Shoot Room Sessions episode 3. For the people watching, could you say who you are, what you do, and your role in OC?
Yeah. So I'm Andrew Dewar. I'm the head of people for Oxygen Conservation.
Okay, and what does that role involve?
So at the moment, a lot of recruitment, which is fantastic.
Which is literally why we're here today.
Indeed, yeah, we're here to recruit today, which is a brilliant place to recruit, saying looking over the most amazing vista.
Yeah, lots of sheep currently grazing in our orchard out there.
Yep.
Again, for people out there who think I hate sheep, don't hate sheep. Right animal, right place. Thank you, sheep, for doing the grazing.
So recruitment's part of the role. The other part is supporting individuals to be their best and to achieve high performance. And I do that through one-to-one coaching, through wider training and support to the rest of the team, and anything else I can do to help out that each individual might need.
That is a beautiful segue into talking about high performance. So, you and I have known each other for a decade plus and worked together in lots of different ways. And we're very cynical about people who talk about high performance and about whether they're qualified to judge or not. So for people who might be equally cynical, why on earth should we listen to you about high performance? Why should we believe you know anything about it?
It's a really interesting way to set that up.
Yeah.
I'm going to say don't believe everything that anyone says, but take value from what some people say. So hopefully there'll be some things that maybe that we've not spoken about before and that people listening will be able to get some value from. Where my expertise and experience comes from is that I studied psychology at university, and all that really qualifies you to do is study more psychology. So that's what I did. So I did a master's in performance psychology in Edinburgh, and I thought, right, great, I'll get a job now. But I really wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, you and me both.
So I did a PhD, and I looked at how motivation influences performance and emotions in competitive sports setting. And so I've spent about the last 10 years taking that knowledge from academia and applying that to individuals from third sector, public sector, private sector, and now at Oxygen Conservation.
And a background in high-level music performance?
Yes, so that was what I was doing alongside the studying and learning about people. Was I played double bass since I was about 8 years old. Did that for 10 years, ended up in the National Youth Orchestra in Scotland. Then played music, but then later in university found my passion for sport. So literally sat watching a documentary in a hotel room in America, the first time.
We haven't talked about this.
So, well, there you go, see. So I started watching this documentary about a high school team in New York. I went to visit New York. And I was just like, I just want to do this. It'd always been one of those things that I kind of saw but never did because there was always other things. And so my final year at university, I made the time for it and developed it, loved it, and then thought, why am I so terrified? Like, why just the obvious, much bigger men running at me and putting me on the ground? But beyond that, like, what is the mental side of sport? And that kicked off everything that has then led up to this point.
And the national championship with the American football team?
Yeah. So I'm really not good at selling this.
No, it's what
you're going to have to continue to pull those out of me.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to be playing and coaching at the University of Birmingham during an incredibly successful time. We won 2 championships when I was playing. We played in the final of a third. And when I was coaching, we won our further 2 championships. And then I even played a bit of flag American football, won a championship with them a few years later.
Before we leave American football alone, which we probably won't full stop, but what I love about football and high-level sport of any kind is the immediacy of feedback. So you knew pretty quickly if you'd made a mistake or you weren't up to standards on an American football pitch because you were on the floor. And no other walk of life is the feedback quite that immediate and apparent, and you just have to decide 2 choices. So you're on the floor. Am I going to get up and go again, or am I going to stay here and quit? And then what am I going to do to make sure it doesn't happen again? And I think through everything we've done in terms of performance, I've tried to create culture and environment where you can be as immediate as possible with that feedback and give people those choices. Did you feel that type of thing at the time? Does that resonate with your experiences of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because I played wide receiver, so my job was to run and catch the ball. Unfortunately, I wasn't particularly good at either aspect of things.
I wasn't going to mock your ability. I was going to let that go by. But...
So what I was good at was understanding the game and getting to the right place and putting myself in the best position. But you always had that, every time you went out there was a binary element, like you either did catch the ball or you didn't. But there was more to it than that. There was the art of the game and the understanding it. And I think you're right about the immediacy of feedback. But often we have to separate the outcome from what happened from the process and from doing the right thing and maybe not achieving the outcome.
Yeah. Okay, so that again moves us on to, and we're stealing this from a podcast you and I both enjoy. What does high performance mean to you?
So I like the Gary Neville doing the best with what you can at the time. Completely butchered that.
It's like doing the best that you can with what you've got where you are or something to that help. Because he's borrowed it from somebody else as well. I can't remember the original.
Yeah, but thinking it through. So I like that because my PhD was in focusing on the mastery of sport and how that can have a positive impact on your performance and your emotions, as opposed to the competition and the direct successful comparison from one person to the next. So that part of it appeals to me, but what it misses is the execution. And high performance is in the execution. And I think it is that. It's actually, did you deliver your best possible performance that you can do on the biggest stage that you have? And did you learn from it and think about how to do it better next time?
It's really interesting, isn't it? So you mentioned the sort of separation of comparison there, and we'll, as you and I approached it, we'll jump topic. How do you consider high performance in the context of recruitment then, when you're inherently comparing person against person?
Because it's always both. You can come to a point where you do compare person to person.
Yeah.
You're also thinking about, what is this person's talent? What could they be in the future? What do we see them being when they're in this environment where they're motivated, they're engaged, they're supported, they're coached? But also, what does the role need? And what is this person going to do now? And what is this person going to do in the future? So all of those things come together to be the comparison. And that's one of the reasons recruitment's so fascinating. There's always so many facets. And we've had such amazing discussions over the last few days about the candidates that have been here, because, really excellent candidates that required that discussion to really understand who we're going to make the offer.
It's mind-blowing how little time, respect, and investment so many businesses and companies make in talent acquisition, because you get one wrong, it sets everyone back. And by getting one wrong, I don't mean necessarily picking a bad person or someone who performs badly, but on missing a great one. Whereas if you, and we absolutely live by that, only recruit people better than us in a meaningful way. Because I think the reverse is just mindless. If you recruit someone who isn't better than you, you're reducing the quality of your team overall. Whereas if you add someone, you're elevating it. And I think that's where we invest so much time and effort into that process. So we had somewhere in the region of 500 applicants for our recent campaign. How many did you meet for that first level of screening?
72.
72 individuals.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So can you talk people through our process a little bit? So start with the application and then sort of describe what that looks like at OC.
Yeah. So with regards to the application, we ask some simple screening questions, covering letter and CV, and we read everything.
So just to explain why that was in there, make it as easy as possible for people to apply, because people are busy. Where you and I both talked in the past about the frustration of very tailored interview questions that are about the recruiter to make it easy for them. In fact, we've had arguments with HR departments who've said, but it'd be easier for us this way. And we've had to go, it's not about you. Yep. It's about attracting the best candidates. So we're trying to get as many people into that funnel as possible. Okay, so they've applied, nice and easy, simple, give them an opportunity to showcase what they want to. Read everything.
So we need to take a step back. I jumped in too far. One of the jobs that I did along the twists and turns along the way of applying psychology was business improvement. Mm-hmm. So understanding what is process, how do you create it, who is your customer? There's always multiple customers, but for me, the customer has always been the applicant. Yeah. And too often in recruitment, we think about the customer as the company or the hiring manager. So we created an experience for the candidates. That started with amazing marketing materials put together by the team. It started with the website showing them what we're all about.
Shout out to Josh and Elle for an amazing website. Well done, team.
Indeed, fantastic stuff. Literally could not have done anywhere near that good without them. And we've had so many compliments about it captures the essence of the team. We that's one of the reasons they came to speak with us. So you get that right, you get that attraction piece right, and then when they come to do the application materials, yeah.
So you're right. That is the first step. So brand positioning, excitement around the company, which we've been really fortunate to hit timing, huge support and backing from Auction House that's helped us build these quality materials, a relentless, prolific photographer, videography team, and Josh and Elle producing enough material to make it attractive. The next step that we didn't touch on was the actual job advert and refusal to make it dull and boring. And how many job titles did we go through to?
We did, yeah. So one of the things that we like to do in Power Recruitment is make the job title interesting, because it's the first thing there.
Head of storytelling, curator of clarity, ecosystem guardian. We've had some governor of the first bank of natural capital. Because if there's 50 ecologist jobs, how do you differentiate? So how many do you think you went through for all these? I saw a top 10.
Yeah, you saw a top 10, but we had loads of ideas behind the background. Yeah. We asked AI for a bit of help, which was good to spark some ideas and start that initial creativity. Yeah. But for each role, we had a short list of 3.
And bounce that through tons of people in the team as well, so that people are comfortable with it.
Yeah, exactly, because we love feedback. We love to get ideas from people. Because that kind of thing is a creative process that is only strengthened by getting other people's opinions. Because I could say how I think it's going to land with me, but then the wording can be slightly off.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so brands built, materials out there, continue to put stuff out about how we approach this. Job adverts up there, application comes up, funnel started, we've seen the materials, next step.
So the next step was to get some of the folks on our team to have a look at that and do that initial screening.
And who did we ask to do that?
So we asked, very kindly, Abby and James did that work.
So current 2 people who previously interned with us, now with the team. So why do we choose those people?
Well, we thought it was an opportunity.
Spot on.
Yeah.
And that's so. When we in your career, when were you allowed to see application material?
Well, the first thing was when I started recruiting as a hiring manager.
Yeah.
I started in the social integration charity, and they said, "You've done psychology, you'll be good at recruitment." And I was like, I think I've only ever read my own CV.
It's just madness, isn't it? That's what's so exciting about people early in their career seeing, here are 500 applications, and you weren't asking them to make qualitative assessments of these people. It's, are they complete? Is there a full set of things that we can review and consider?
Yep.
And just hearing the feedback from James and I about, wow, seeing this and this, and I can learn from this. You absolutely know their materials. Hopefully you never apply for another job. We love having you here, although I'm sure you'll go on to amazing things, whatever you choose to do. If they do ever choose to do that, it's going to be so much better than it was.
Yeah. And you know what? They saw a great pool of candidates.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you do recruitment, it's like, this person's not tailored their application. They're not in this sector. There's nothing about the CV that even says to me, you want this job.
Yeah.
We got so little of that. So they did a lot of really tough work in terms of hopefully enjoyable work, but a lot of really good people that they said, yeah, these people are bang on for our culture. This is aligned with what we're trying to do. And then me and the hiring managers came into the second pair of eyes on all of those applications, starting from fresh, reading from bottom of the CV back up the way, and reading the covering letter and all of the details, trying to understand their character and their credentials.
So at written application stage, your application has been seen by 4 members of the team.
Yeah.
So in terms of eyes on. What I love about that is that corrects ourselves for any, and we can get into this in another episode, but unconscious bias or whatever preferences people have, it corrects for that. It avoids us missing someone uber talented in a way that someone might not recognize, and also challenges us to keep talking about, what does the role need? Could we open it this way? Can we consider it that way? And also I think it really tests that sort of cultural alignment and value set, because all it takes is one person to go, I really don't think this person would fit, or I'm not sure about their work ethic, or do they really mean it about the environment, and is it a legitimate thing? So I love that lots of eyes have been on there. Okay, so then they come and see you or have a call with you. Is that the next step?
Yeah, so we invite them to an initial interview.
Yeah.
And so we'll spend an hour and we'll talk a lot about their motivation, their character, their passion for the environment.
What is there a standard question you open with, or what? Give me an example of a question you would ask them in that setting.
So, the first question that we ask them is tell me about your relationship with the natural world and what does living sustainably mean to you?
I mean, is that it? So I love that that's the first question. So I think prior to you putting a bit more robustness and structure around this process, that was one of the early questions or a version of that was an early question I really enjoyed, because it was essentially an open gateway to say, it's different from why do you want this job? It's, do you live and breathe this? Is it really part of your purpose and motivation? Because it is for us, it's all about scaling conservation. And I think quite quickly, if someone didn't believe that, it wouldn't align with the rest of the team's values and priorities. And it's a bit like muscle memory. If you don't really, coming back to our football world, people will describe, if someone doesn't love football, they won't be prepared to do the work and suffer with it. If you don't genuinely want to scale conservation, when you're wet and cold, you'll make a choice that doesn't align with that. Or when you're tired and run down or annoyed, because we all get there, you'll make a choice that doesn't align with conservation environment. We need to avoid that. Okay, so that period of that conversation with you lasts?
Usually that's about an hour.
Okay, and then you'll make a decision. You'll score that conversation?
Yeah, so there is structure and scoring behind that.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of benefit from doing that. So we ask everybody the same questions. Sometimes the order's different. I'm not so structured that I won't allow a conversation to flow. If it, for example, one of the questions we ask is about impact. And sometimes that flows nicely from, their passion for sustainability. Then we can talk about what is the impact they want to have in the world, which usually we would ask at the end. But we score them all. Now, this is tricky because that's subjective.
Yeah.
But given that I did it 72 times, I know there's going to be differences. I know the research out there that every time you score something, all you're doing is bringing your own curve of evaluation and putting it onto a set of candidates. But at least I'm open to that. And what I'm saying is I have this curve of evaluation, and this is where the multiple ways of viewing candidates comes back, because this is how I'm evaluating people. These are the strengths that I think they've got, and these are the areas we've got for development. You match that to the roles, you think about where they could place, you think about, could we work with them, could we maximize their talent and their skills, and then you've got the next stage of that panel interview. You've also got a robust data set that you can then use and think about, and then we can compare that in the future to how are my ratings changing over the future? Do I feel like there'll be a qualitative and subjective?
That's why it's so important that we stay quite consistent with those questions.
Yeah.
So we can compare that data set. Shout out to Work Rules by Laszlo Bock, HR book you and I both love. Not so much the last third, felt a bit laboured, but the first 2/3, adore that.
I'm sure when he listens to this, he'll be really crushed.
It's going to message me and go, well, that was my favourite bit. When I finish writing my book, the third section is just going to be completely decadent. It's just going to be about coffee, chocolate brownies and weightlifting. Just about nothing else.
We'll skip that bit.
Yeah, nice. Everyone does. So even throughout this process, we've spotted some learning. So we talked about how, that really focused on the character side of things there.
Yep.
And actually, I'm going to big you up again because you won't. You're very good at creating an environment where people can showcase the best of them. So in that hour-long conversation, an interesting thing we found is sometimes you've got every ounce of storytelling, creativity and experience out of an individual. And then when we've brought them into the longer panel interview, you've just got that again, right? There's nothing else to go with.
Yeah.
And I think, so in future, rather than just you doing that hour, we're going to have you and a recruiting manager or someone close to the role, part of that initial screening.
Exactly. I think it's really, really interesting the way that that's come about. And I think of interviews not as a judgment of a person.
It's a date.
No. I think about it like a podcast. So I started this podcast for Rich Eisen, when this would be back in 2008 when he was doing podcasts for the NFL Network.
Okay, yeah. Rich,
right? NFL Network. Rich Eisen Network. He's an inspiration. I'm sure he's listening.
Him and Laszlo sat there together going, these guys are doing a podcast about us.
And he's a brilliant interviewer. He's a great host of a show as well. There's very little ego with him, and he's trying to get the best from the person he's speaking to. And that's the mindset that I like when I have an interview. I get the opportunity to hear a person's story and probe into the detail of that. And I just love it. It has been a little bit like when they come to the panel interview and they've got more, you're like so excited. It's like, this person's even better than I thought. But I've always been an optimist. I've always seen the best in people. And so when I finish these interviews, I think, God, they've got more to give. Can't wait to see them in the panel.
So your curve is, this has been great. They're going to come on and keep performing.
Because I just assume everyone's better than me and I assume they're going to be brilliant and all this kind of stuff. They've got loads more stories to tell. and sometimes they don't. And it's tough because interviews are very stressful situations, but then sometimes work is very stressful as well.
Yeah, it is.
And we do need depth, and we need the ability to call on multiple experiences.
I do think that's a worry about our process, really. We've invested a lot of time and effort in making an environment where people can do their best and be happy and make it about the candidate. The marathon of sprints that is trying to scale conservation isn't always nice, isn't always comfortable. You know, we're trying to change land use. We're trying to change the way people interact with the world. You get attacked for that, you get criticised and things, and almost it's that balance of making sure we create a lovely environment for a person, but not one that's too sanitised and doesn't reflect the reality of the role they'll have to do, because we do work incredibly hard. Okay, so I say we're jumping around. So we're going to panel interview now?
Okay. So fantastic. We bring them to our site. That's a great opportunity. We think it's a genuinely great opportunity for them to come and see these amazing places. We also get so much from meeting them in person. There's things you cannot pick up when you're working with somebody virtually. You just can't get into the detail. You can't get a sense for them. Also, when they come to panel interview, they meet a range of people.
Yeah.
So we're here at Mornicott. Charles has very kindly been walking people around this amazing site and chatting to them, not only showing them the environment here, but getting to know them.
So to recap, so in this process, by the time they come to panel interview, their CV's been seen by 4 people. They've met 3 or 4 more in person. They'll meet 5 or 6 here today on site. So, you know, you're going to be meeting almost double-figure people before there's a job offer coming. And I think what's really important about that is that gives that person a genuine window into the people they'll be interacting and working with. The other bit I like about bringing them to site is we travel a lot. That's a reality of the role. We're all remotely based. We do come together a lot as a team. At the moment, we've got 10 sites across the country. Hopefully, if we can scale as we want to, that'll be 20 or 30 sites in the years to come and in multiple countries. So giving people the experience of get up early, get on the road, go out and do it, you're starting to live some of that role. So I think that's really important as well. Okay, so panel interview. Give me an example of one of your favourite questions you ask in a panel interview.
It's interesting. I like one of the questions that we finish on. What do you need to be awesome in this role?
Yeah. Which used to be the first question we asked, and I think it was your feedback that went, don't ask that early because people don't know the culture of us enough to be able to answer it. By moving it to the back of the interview, I think it was you and Dave both just at the same time, I think. By moving it to the back of the interview, they've had lots of time with us to understand it's okay to ask for those things and talk about what you need.
Yeah, because they've had an hour and a half of jokes and making people feel comfortable and talking about the realities of what it's like working with us. And so that they are able to be comfortable. That's one of the things, is that we want people to settle in and be comfortable with these interviews. Because we're pushing, we're trying to do our best. And this is really interesting. You've got to be outside your comfort zone to grow, right? But it doesn't mean you have to be in a constant state of anxiety. There's a difference. There's a difference between comfort zone and feeling anxious. And I think they go together. But there's got to be a time when you're not feeling anxious.
Yeah.
And actually, we want that anxiety. Like when you started a football game, you probably didn't get nervous because you're a superstar, but I got nervous. And there was always the butterflies in the stomach. But then once you'd done that first play, and everybody used to talk about this, either the first play or the first time you'd hit somebody, that went away and you were just able to focus and be in the zone. And we did a great thing yesterday where we had a surprise exercise for the candidates.
I had no idea you were going to do this, and I love it. I've never heard of it before.
So, I mean, I've done exercises where you've asked people to, on the spot, you drop into a room, right, do these exercises for me. And it's just a test of, because so much of interviews are give us an example, talk us through this. This was do the job in its miniature form, but we did it during the interview, which for one candidate in particular, we think really centered them because it had been a tough trip to get here, anxious. And then it was like, oh, hang on a second, I can do this. That moment of confidence.
I love how we're constantly trying to evolve this process in terms of what comes. So we've talked about that different composition of the initial screening. So you and a recruiting manager to look more at the technical side of things and give a blended approach. We also played around with the idea of allowing candidates to select their own interview panel, which logistically didn't work this time around because of people's availability and us having the panel composition that we needed in terms of subject matter experts and variety across the team. but I really like the idea of people being able to. We were going to give them a short paragraph on members of the team. So the recruiting manager and you would be on the panel, and that person could choose their third person, which we'll do again in future, I think. And that variety of exercises and different ways of approaching, I think, just keeps it fresher and interesting. And then whether someone gets a role or not, I mean, you and I have been through so many interviews together, on either side of the table. I've got better every time I've been through an interview process. And improved it.
As the recruiter?
As the recruiter or being recruited. I think if you view that as open, I sometimes keep two sets of notes if I'm on a panel. The ones about the candidate and the things it prompts me to think about what we should do different in our business or change things, or even when, and it's very much in the same spirit as you were saying, you get that opportunity to have your one-to-one sit down and learn from that person. I think you get to view your business and the role through another person's eyes. And by the time they come to that panel interview, you've only brought forward exceptional people.
Yeah.
So at that point, we're going to learn one or two things from each of them. If we can give them an experience as well that irrespective of whether they get a role or not, they grow as people, we've done something right and kind in terms of that process.
Exactly that. Yeah, you're exactly right. We're only bringing forward exceptional people that we're really excited to meet. Let's make it an exciting experience for them so they grow from that.
Yeah.
But it's too often you're serving us as the company. You serve us.
It's so it's arrogant. So many interviews are arrogant. We've had horrible processes across the way where, and it's just not transparent, and people they're not honest with you. And everyone knows when you're lied to at interview. Oh well, blah blah blah. Sorry, it's not you. Oh, so you had someone who's already doing the job. Yeah, I did. Oh. Whereas we'll never do it. We're just going to be completely honest about in terms of what's there. So I'm acutely aware of time. Josh has given me the 5-minute warning. There's loads of things I want to get into, but we'll save this for another one in terms of what does exceptional really mean when we're bringing an exceptional person forward. And one of the phrases to tease for next time is, I was once told, you don't want to miss good people through the interview process. And my response was, I want to miss lots of good people. I only want exceptional people, which we can do a whole thing on. So panel interview finishes. Next step is I have a chat with the person.
Indeed.
Why do we do that?
I think it's important for them to meet you, and it's important for you to meet them. It's important because it's yet another person who's met somebody, got to know them from our point of view. From their point of view, we did some of the pre-work for this. We were preparing template emails, and I described you as the end box.
On a really crappy 80s computer game.
Yeah, and a modern, very good, recent computer game in God of War. But the point was to do that tongue-in-cheek, because meeting you is a personable experience, and that, to me, spoke of the culture. And it's fascinating. Do you remember the term senior leaders?
Yeah.
We've not heard that because we have senior leaders.
Yeah.
But we never use those words. And I think by inviting them to have a conversation with you allows them to see, you are Rich, the managing director, but you're Rich. And I think them getting to know you, you getting to know them, and everybody feeling comfortable with that process.
What's really lovely is, that's come through really strongly with our sort of estate-based teams at the moment. So we've got estate managers that themselves have worked in quite hierarchical structures before. And the fact that they've said, wow, we have the flattest structure going and everyone's accessible and it's the right person for the right job irrespective of roles. Without us exploring that, they have offered up, that's amazing to be part of and please keep it that way. So I'm going to fast forward us because Josh has given us the 1-minute warning. So that final part of the process, conversation, and then line manager makes an offer for a role and then they come and have a conversation with you about us crafting the package that person's delighted to accept. So the final bit I'd get you to close on is, what advice would you give a candidate when they're thinking about what they want to ask for in terms of a package?
I think it's not being afraid to say what you want.
Yeah.
Don't be the person don't be the person that says no to you.
Lovely advice.
Allow the other people to do that. Also be thinking about and knowing the numbers. Even if you're not a numbers person, get some help and know the numbers. Know it. If something comes up in the discussion that you want to go back and check, take the time. Yeah. By this point, we're not bothered about the next few days. If you want to go away and have a think, we're so excited. We want you to feel happy about that and continue to feel excited. We need to talk about what that really means in terms of what the benefits package is going to make the person happy. You need to know the numbers and the details of that beyond the numbers about what that means for you, what the structure would look like, what your support system is going to be like at home. Let's have that conversation, but let's do it in a pretty informal way. It doesn't need to be agreed on exactly at that time. If you want to think about it.
Back and forward. It's a conversation. Like every part of this, it's a conversation, and we want people to be delighted about accepting a role. Perfect. I think that's our time, Andrew. Thank you so much for the conversation. I'm sure we'll have a lot more of this. So let's thank you from Andrew and from me, and that's Shoot Room session number 3 over. Bye-bye.